Hello, Minecraft people. If you've ever seen an auto-smelting furnace, this design probably looks familiar to you. You put the items to smelt in at the top, fuel goes in at the side, and the ingots are deposited into this chest here when the furnace is done. But this is not your typical auto-smelting furnace. Let me show you. If you put the gold ore in up here, it goes into the furnace and it begins to get smelted. And then when it's done, you get a gold nugget. Wait, that's not right. Let's try iron ore instead. Again, we put the iron ore in at the top. In the furnace, we can see it is there. It's getting smelted. The hopper appears to be pointed into the chest. And if we wait just a minute, we see that we now have an iron nugget too. So what's going on? Well, of course, this is a prank furnace, and if you set it up in the way I have, it seems to be a very inefficient one. If we come around to the back and break this block, you can see there's quite a bit more under the surface than it appeared. In this chest here, you can see the iron and gold ingots we expected to get earlier have been collected. And there's a whole bunch of redstone circuitry around here too. There's hoppers leading around in a circle, a dropper facing up into the chest, some other droppers leading up into them, and what over here looks like a sorting system. So now that you've seen this furnace in action and got a sneak peek at how it works, I'm going to show you how to build it. So as you can see, I've already dug out some space underneath where the furnace is going to be. It's a 5 block by 7 block area, and it's 7 blocks deep. And so you're going to need to dig some space out underneath the furnace in order to build this. And this is more space than you need, but it gives you enough room to move around and build the circuit easily. And so before we start building the circuit, I'm going to first put together the auto smelting furnace very quickly. And that's just a hopper and a hopper and a chest and a chest and a hopper. And then over here is another chest, and from underneath the furnace, a hopper leading into that chest. Now we actually need to place a dropper underneath this chest, and it's really difficult to do that if the chest is still there. So I'm actually going to break that block and put a dropper underneath it first, and then put the chest on top. And over here we need 2 more droppers, and I'm going to place down the blocks first and put those droppers down. Those are going to be leading into the hopper stream, which comes out from underneath this hopper. And again, you know, I'm placing the droppers down first because it is a lot easier to do it rather than having to break the hoppers and place them back and everything. So here we're going to place some hoppers leading this one into the dropper, into the hopper, again into the hopper. Keep making sure that they're pointed into each other, going all the way around until you finally get to the one that is underneath this hopper. When the furnace smelts items, the items are gonna come down into this hopper, and it is pointed into the chest, but as long as there's another hopper underneath it, it will pull the item out of that hopper, and that's why they don't end up in the chest and why they go through the system instead. If this hopper is ever powered, though, this furnace will operate just like a normal furnace. So over here, I'm gonna place down 2 more blocks and put the chest on top of it. This is where the ingots are going to collect. And then into that are 2 more hoppers. And over here are 2 more blocks. And we need to place 2 hoppers underneath the other hoppers and above the ones we just placed, pointing into a block. And we need to make sure that these are not pointing down, they're not pointing into each other, they're not pointing into any other container. And that's to make sure that items stay in there until they're ready, until the circuit is ready to pull them out. So next we're going to build this little shape. It's 1 block high here, have a gap, have 2 block high, and then we're going to follow this pattern of place down 2 repeaters, a redstone torch, 2 more repeaters, make sure it's got a delay of 1, and 2 more torches. And that's the first half of the sorting system built. We're going to put 2 more blocks on top of each of those. And then finally, to complete the sorting system, we need to put down a comparator, another comparator, and fill the rest with redstone dust. So if the signal ever hits 3, it'll send a signal through, turning off this redstone torch, which will activate this hopper, allowing it to pull an item through into the chest. At the same time, it's going to send another signal through this repeater to this torch, turning it on, and that'll trigger the dropper to push an item up into the hopper stream. From the hopper stream, we need to create another circuit which will actually trigger the dropper when an item is going through it. So we're going to build out this kind of funky shape, and that's so that we can have a comparator coming out of this hopper into this block, and then a piece of redstone dust which will be powered through that block, and then finally a repeater pointed into the block underneath the dropper, triggering it to send the item up. And make sure this repeater is set to 3 ticks. A lot of the time when you build a dropper circuit like this, the dropper will have a sort of redstone repeater, redstone clock type circuit on it. But because we're working with a furnace here, and furnaces work very slowly, there will only ever be one item going through this at a time. And so instead of doing that, we can actually take the signals of an item going through this hopper and delay the signal long enough to make sure that it gets into the dropper before we tell the dropper to then fire up its item. The last thing we need to do is actually fill up these 2 hoppers and fill up the droppers behind them. So this is pretty easy to do. We need the iron ingots, and we need some gold ingots, and we need a stackable item which you'll never have coming out of a furnace. So something like mushrooms would be good. And then in here we put four items in each of these slots, and then put the ingots into the last one. And you can see immediately the items are actually getting pulled out of the hopper. And when it gets down to, I believe, 41, it'll actually stop. And you can see here, if I put another one in, it gets pulled out and it ends up in the chest down here. So there are all those ingots. And then, so you have to remember which one's which. If you mix up which one is the gold and which one is the iron, your furnace is going to be spitting out the wrong items. So this one in the back I set up as gold, so that means this dropper in the back is the replacement items. And so I'm going to put some gold ingots in here, maybe some sunflowers, I think, and some gold nuggets. And the way droppers work, whenever it receives a signal, it's going to send out one of these items at random. And so a third of the time, this furnace is actually going to work how people would expect. A third of the time it'll be inefficient, and a third of the time you'll get flowers. For the iron, I'm going to do something similar. I'm going to put a whole bunch of iron in, and I think I will put some iron nuggets here, and let's say a stack of carrots as well. So sometimes you'll actually get carrots out of this system for some reason. So that's the whole system built. You can create an off switch if you want by taking a lever and putting a block right in the middle of these hopper stream. Just put a lever on it, and whenever that's on, it'll activate that hopper, this one right here, which will mean that items can't go through it, and so this hopper is actually going to work. It'll send the items directly into the chest. So I'm going to flip that back off, and then after that it's just a matter of camouflaging it, and you can do that very easily with stone slabs. The slabs are good because they kind of make it hard to see that there's a hopper underneath this hopper, and they look kind of they look natural. That's what people kind of expect with a furnace like this. So you can build this out however you want, making sure to cover everything up. You can put stone right behind it and fill up the ground. And then if you want to, you can create a secret entrance or just a trapdoor, whatever you want, to be able to go down in there, take items out as that fills up, and also refill the dropper as people are using it. The droppers, but as people are using it. So there you go. That's how to build a prank furnace. And depending on how you set it up, it could be an inefficient furnace, a flower furnace, really whatever you want it to do, you can make it do with this setup.